Hello, this is what we are reclaiming. So this week we're going to talk about Zambia. I know we've covered a lot of this because Zambia went to the polls on the 13th of August 2026. That has been concluded. We've got a winner, the incumbent, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, popularly known as HH. He's been mandated to serve on the second term, and he beat the opposition leader, Mr. Brian Mundubile, and his running mate, Mr. Makebi Zulu. Now, if you look at the camp, a lot of people are celebrating in Zambia today, youths marching in the streets in jubilation, and the president gave his first address and so on and so forth. So if you really look at it, for those people that might say, well, the president doesn't have enough, support, you can clearly see the support on the one hand. However, on the other hand, again, you can see that there are a lot of people, millions and millions of people that are against what has actually happened because they feel as though that vote was actually stolen away from them. Now, this clearly shows the division that you can see in people. Okay, clearly people are stressed out in the other camp, the Brian Mundubile's camp, the Makebi Zulu's camp, the Tonse Pamosi Alliance camp, to the point that they're accusing the state and the government of oppression and not carrying out a free and fair election. So in this video, we're going to talk about two important things. And the first thing I really want to talk about is the former minister that was allegedly attacked at Mr. Brian Mundubile's residence when the state military went over there. So in that fracas, we saw that this same missing person, in fact, is not just the one missing person, but this is the one of the ones that are saying he's missing and he's alleged to have died in that fracas. Now, according to Mr. Brian Mundubile, the opposition leader, he's actually telling people that he saw it with his own eyes that this man was actually shot. So Mr. Kafwaya himself was a former member of Parliament for Lunte. He's also a former Minister of Transport and Logistics, and I think he also worked for the Ministry of Works and Supply. Now, reports that we are getting from what Mr. Mundubile is saying is that this man was killed alongside his own bodyguard, Mr. Richard Banda. Let's just take a listen to what Mr. Brian Mundubile said in this interview. Just take a look and see it for yourself.
Gate down, began to break the doors and the windows and had access to the house. Of course, out of panic, we were trying to find safe places to hide. They followed us up to the bedrooms. And the moment they entered my bedroom, where I was with my wife and a colleague of mine, who was a former Minister of Transport, they immediately opened fire. I saw them shoot my friend twice. They located where I was and fired in my direction 2 times. Actually, part of my hair was scraped off. I walked out with some gunpowder. I don't know how I survived, but I survived. My wife equally, who was close to where my friend was narrowly missed by those bullets. They never said anything to us. They just got in and started shooting.
And who were they?
Zambia Army, the military for the Zambian government.
What happened to the former minister who was shot twice?
I'm reliably informed that he has died.
And what's his name?
His name is Honorable Mutotwe Kafwaya. My bodyguard too, Richard Banda, I'm told he has also died.
So when we look at that raid that happened at Brian Mundubile's house, okay, what we are getting is that obviously there were 11 people, including the main opposition leader, Mr. Brian Mundubile. We saw he was coming out with what he calls as gunpowder on his head, which normally, gunpowder is always microscopic, okay? So whether or not that is something that was exaggerated and so on and so forth, the truth of the matter is that does not stop the fact that the opposition leader was attacked alongside other people that are suspected to have been killed in that raid. Okay, now according to the president himself, he actually said it out to say the reason why Brian Mundubile and his counterparts were attacked on that day was mainly because of the fact that they were being tracked for such a long time, and there was suspected activity of possibly training civilians or whoever it is abroad in Russia to try and probably destabilize the country. And there was high-grade military equipment that was found at Brian Mundubile's house. Now, whether or not that was licensed or whether they had the right to own that equipment, all that information is not known. But at the end of the day, we've seen that emotional plea that has been put up by the family members, particularly the wife, that was almost pleading to the state that they need help, they cannot move on, they cannot sleep, they cannot eat, and you can feel for the family.
So I don't know where to go. That's why I'm appealing to the state to come in, because the children are affected. I am affected. Family members are affected. The friends are affected. We don't know what to do. We don't know where to start from. We don't know where to hold we don't know whether to hold a funeral or not, because we can't hold a funeral without accessing him. I don't know where my husband is. You are affecting my health. You are affecting my health. I'll also die at the end, because this is not easy. This is not normal. Please help us as a government. Help us, because you already confirmed.
So here's the fact that matters to me, and I think the thing that is really disturbing, after all of these things have happened, all these allegations that are happening, going back and forth with the state and witnesses and so on, is the fact that we've not had one steady explanation from the government. I mean, we saw from President HH when he made his first address, there was no mention of these things at all. Now, you can imagine the wife watching that particular address and hoping and expecting some kind of information from the head of state himself. There was nothing at all. So that was really disappointing, particularly that this was a high-profile case and people were waiting to hear, just to hear what the president was going to say. And obviously, chances are we may not even hear this from the president, but from other senior sources. But so this is a matter that cannot be dismissed, because it falls at the heart of many Zambians. You know, a lot of Zambians are concerned about this, and this is not right. So it would be nice if we hear some of these things coming from the government themselves. And the second issue we're going to talk about is whether those results that were announced actually match the paperwork, which is in Zambia. Obviously, we've got what is called as the Gen 20. So these are the forms that are actually issued as soon as all those tallying takes place, as evidence that of the tallying, to show that these are the votes that have been counted. So what the opposition is saying, that there's malpractice here, because what the results that were announced do not match those Gen 20s. Now, so what a lot of people are saying is that the stopping of the counting of votes is not justified, because they based it on the fact that there was violence happening all across the country or in some parts of the country. But the opposition is saying, and a lot of observers are saying, that that kind of violence was sporadic, okay, and it could have easily been contained wherever it was happening from. And so the decision that the state took, or the Electoral Commission of Zambia took, did not justify the reasons why that was stopped. And the suspicion, and this is where the big thing is, the suspicion is that because Mr. Brian Mundubile was leading, that was stopped to provide some kind of whatever it is, the manipulation, which is what they're saying supposedly happened. So obviously we don't know about that, and I'm not saying that is what happened. I'm just saying that this is the argument that the opposition is actually saying may have happened. But whether that is true or not, that is a completely different matter. Now, we've seen lots of international observers have come in and they've said, you know, what they've seen is not right. But one of the ones that have really caught my eye is this professor from the University of Birmingham. His name is Mr. Nick Cheeseman. He's also the founder of Democracy in Africa, who also wrote a book on how elections are rigged. Can you imagine that? Somebody writing a book on that one. And he's now coming out in the open and saying, well, you know, these elections were actually rigged. And he wrote that book together with Dr. Nicole Beardsworth. So I did try to ring them to try and reach out to Mr. Nick Cheeseman today. But obviously, I'm still trying to do so, and I'm trying to arrange an interview with Professor Nick Cheeseman. And if I do manage and if I succeed to speak to him, then it would be such a lovely thing to post that interview here with you. So that would be great. Just Professor Cheeseman and Dr. Beardsworth that are saying that this election was flawed and that it may need to be rerun. You know, so at the end of the day, if you really look at it, that's a very strong term to say that it may need to be rerun. So we've got the African Union as well. We've got the COMESA that was a joint observer mission, you know, over this Zambian election mission. And it's very rare that you see people that dispute and come out in the open and say that that was wrong. So we had 93 observers led by the former Prime Minister. I think, I'm not sure about this, but I think he's the former Prime Minister of Somalia. And then we also saw that SADC sent its own mission, which they do, you know, when there's an election around Africa, they do that as well. We had the European Union as well. They sent its own mission. So this was an activity, obviously, that was packed, you know, with both African, you know, ministries as well as international observers, you know, that raised concerns about this particular election. Now, the only issue with that is the fact that when people talk about some of these things, like myself, okay, I'm not partisan. I do not belong to the UPND, or I do not belong to the Tonsil Alliance, whatever it is. I'm speaking this as an individual based on the evidence, based on the facts that people talk about. The only problem is that there's always going to be an issue that people pick up on you and say, well, you know, you've been paid, or maybe you're talking about this because of this, and that. So if you just listen and follow through the evidence that I'm taking you through, and all these things in the public domain, what Professor Cheeseman is saying, what Dr. Beardsworth is saying, all these things are things that I will put links as well, so you can follow them and read through yourselves on their websites as well. So there's nothing to hide here. We are simply asking questions, and shortly these are things that even Mr. Brian Mundubile himself and possibly Mr. Makebi Zulu will follow through up. Being lawyers themselves, these are two prominent lawyers in Lusaka. Hopefully they understand what has happened and the implications of the law, and they may follow it up with the right channel. Until next time, look after yourselves and take it easy. Bye for now.